What's going on, everyone? So yesterday we got news that Walker Kessler is available for a first-round pick, that the Utah Jazz want to unload Walker Kessler, and they're looking for at least a first. In doing so, Utah and the Lakers, they were part of the reason we were able to trade Russell Westbrook and ended up getting the pieces we needed to get into the conference finals, right? Danny Ainge has on the record saying that he believes that the Lakers picks are the most valuable picks on the market because he believes that when LeBron James and Anthony Davis eventually leave the Lakers, that the Lakers are going to be in disarray, right? That the Lakers are going to be a bad team, and he's kind of willing to bank and kind of bet on the fact that that'll be a possibility, right? So you could kind of orchestrate this to really shape the roster in a contention level type of way, right? Using the Utah Jazz and the Portland Trailblazers is another target that the Lakers are actively in discussions with, trying to get Jeremy Grant. So you could work it out to potentially do a 3-team deal, or you could work it out to 2 individual trades and actually get several pieces, including freeing up cap space to get your full taxpayer mid-level, as well as potentially get Gary Trent Jr., as well as Spencer Dinwiddie, who are the 2 targets that the Lakers are trying to get via free agency. So how would this all work? Now, there's several ways that you can go about this, right? So first off, Lakers could just trade for Walker Kessler by himself, kind of do some salary dump, and then go and trade for Jeremy Grant, and then sign you'd have to use Utah as like a salary dump place, which Utah wouldn't be against, right? They don't want to take on a bunch of salary, but luckily you do have some free agents or some expiring contracts that you could unload on a team like the Utah Jazz, and then go and make the trade for Jeremy Grant, and then end up with Walker Kessler, Jeremy Grant, Gary Trent Jr., and Spencer Dinwiddie. Bring them back. Now, how would this unfold? So you could do something where if you wanted to just get Walker Kessler, you could even technically, if you wanted to, free up your full mid-level exception if they'd be willing to take on D'Lo. Question is like, what would be the cost for that? Would you have to give up a first for Walker Kessler and then another first in order to take on D'Lo and, like, say, Reddish and Christian Wood, right? To now where you have the cap space to free up your full mid-level exception, do something like that. Maybe not. You could also go and get Colin Sexton, right? So you could take D'Lo, you could take Cam Reddish and Christian Wood. Remember, the Lakers want to keep Jackson Hayes. Couple reasons. I mean, I don't know this part for certain, but I think that the Lakers are looking at it just based on things that they have said. Is Jackson Hayes is young, he's 7 foot, and he has upside potential. And he had some good moments for the Lakers. So I think the Lakers are looking at him as like, okay, he could kind of be a development big. If we get a Walker Kessler, he could be our 3rd big, and the Lakers would be in good shape as far as depth goes for the big man department, right? So you could do something where you get D'Lo, help them get off of Colin Sexton's contract, do D'Lo, Christian Wood and Cam Reddish, end up taking on Colin Sexton, end up taking on Walker Kessler, give up a first, and maybe you have to give up like 2 seconds, something like that, because you have to clear more than $22 million. But with D'Lo at 18.7, and then you'd have the 2 vet minimum contracts, it comes out to about just like, I think, a hair under $24 million. So you clear a little cap space, not much, but clear a little cap space in that department, and then you could shift focus over to the Portland Trailblazers, in which Portland is where the problem lies, because Portland wants 2 first-round picks for Jeremy Grant. Now, I don't believe that they'll get it. I think eventually they're going to come down from that. And what would it take? Well, based on reports, they want Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura. Those are the only 2 players that they are interested in. So could you do something to where you basically give up Vando, you give up Rui, give up Jalen Hood-Schifino, right? Because you got to think Rui $17 million, you have Jared Vanderbilt at $10 million, and then you give up a player like Jalen Hood-Schifino. That would clear what you need in order to trade for Jeremy Grant. Maybe you're giving up a first and a pick swap, right? and now you basically end up with Sexton, Kessler, you end up with Jeremy Grant, and now you have the space to go and sign because now you've cleared roster spots, right? You did a essentially 3-for-2 trade, and then you did a 3-for-1 trade. So now you have all these roster spots. You could go bring in Gary Trent Jr., you could bring in Spencer Dinwiddie, and then you'd still have a roster spot open for whatever, if you want to sign one of your two, maybe bring in like a Blake Henson or Colin Castleton or something like that. Maybe bring one of those guys in. Maybe bring in another free agent. Maybe you take a flyer on like Isaac Okoro, right? There's options and flexibility in that regard. And in reality, I don't think that that's an unrealistic possibility, right? We know Portland wants to get off of Jeremy Grant. Pretty much all the teams that were interested in Jeremy Grant that the competition for the Lakers were all did other things, right? You had a team like the Sacramento Kings. They ended up going and trading for DeMar DeRozan, right? The Dallas Mavericks were interested in him. They ended up going and trading for Klay Thompson, right? So kind of takes them off the board. Could they technically still get there? Sure. But based on just the reports, doesn't seem like they're at least pursuing it at this time. Still a lot of time between now and October when the season starts, or September when training camp comes. So maybe things change. There's always that possibility that a team comes out of the woodworks and ends up elevating. But the Portland Trailblazers want to move off of Jeremy Grant. They're not in a hurry. They're not in a rush. They're not in this position to where, they have to move off of him. But they want to get off of him because they want to give the minutes and the shot attempts and the opportunity to the young guys. They want to kind of grow and develop those guys. Also, they want to tank, and Jeremy Grant's probably going to win you a couple games that you don't necessarily want to win. So ideally, they want to move off of Jeremy Grant. But you see it all the time, right? Take the Utah trade a couple years ago when we traded Russell Westbrook to them. At this time that year, the deal was, we want both first, unprotected. We want all your seconds. We want basically the farm. And it was just this incredible, ridiculous fleece deal. And then you got to, close to training camp, and it was like, all right, fine. We'll do the trade what you want, but no Jared Vanderbilt, right? Like, that was the whole thing. And then it was like, no, we want Jared Vanderbilt. And then fast forward, eventually, they get everything that they want. And instead of Mike Conley, they take on D'Lo, right? So, again, if that price ends up dropping, then now you can go, and you'd still have options. Like, again, you still have pick swaps. So Lakers have 2 firsts, 3 pick swaps, as well as, I think, 5 seconds, or 4 seconds now that they can trade, right? So you have enough based on what the asking prices are to get what you want to get if the Lakers are willing to give up. Real question is the Lakers willing to give that up? But if you can essentially turn kind of like, it would suck to lose Rui and Vando, but Jeremy Grant is kind of the two of them combined. You'd also be able to get Gary Trent, also be able to get Spencer Dinwiddie. You'd also be getting Colin Sexton, or you don't have to get Colin Sexton. Again, you could do the salary dump route. They're willing to take D'Lo. Again, free up your full tax or your full mid-level exception. That's always a possibility. Because remember, if D'Lo would have opted out, right, then the Lakers could have cleared enough to get their full mid-level exception. And on top of that, you got to remember, LeBron took a discount to keep them under the second apron. So you have his discount, you'd have the unloading of D'Lo's money, and you could kind of free yourself up to put yourself in a position. So there's a lot of flexibility with Utah. Like, Utah may end up being the key to do everything else you want to do, right? And if Jeremy Grant doesn't work out, you could always go to Brooklyn. And you could always hit up, because Brooklyn wants D'Lo, so you could always go to Brooklyn and try to get Cam Johnson, right? And they only want a first for Cam Johnson. Can that come down to like a pick swap, right? So then maybe you get to keep a first, right? Maybe you're taking a first and you're getting Walker Kessler. You could still go get Colin Sexton if you want to Colin Sexton. If not, again, you could just bring in Kessler, bring in Cam Johnson, right? Now you solved your center position. Now you solved your 3-and-D wing position, and then you bring in a Gary Trent Jr., you bring in a Spencer Dinwiddie. Now you just basically kind of revamped your roster a little bit, but you still were able to keep the core pieces, right? You still were able, like, especially in the Cam Johnson trade, you're probably keeping Jared Vanderbilt. at that point, right? You're probably gonna have to give up. You'd probably give up D'Lo. Would they take Gabe Vincent? Like, would one of these teams take Gabe Vincent? Right? Like, that's a big thing too. There's, again, with Utah, the flexibility to potentially work something out to give you some wiggle room, right? So again, maybe you're using Utah as that salary dump space, but again, it's like, what is that mid-level exception player? Now, due to the new CBA rules, you can take that mid-level exception and now you can use it via a trade. So it basically operates as a trade exception. So maybe it's not a free agent, right? Maybe you are able to get Gary Trent at the vet minimum. Maybe you are able to get Spencer Dinwiddie at the vet minimum, and you're able to take that $13 million trade exception now, because again, the full mid-level exception can be used essentially as a trade exception, and you're using that to go get a piece. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be right away, right? If you got a Cam Johnson or you got a Jeremy Grant, you can put yourself in position to potentially do that. And technically, you could do all of it, again, if somebody would take Gabe Vincent. Because if one of these teams is willing to take on Gabe, then like you could do the salary dump for D'Lo, right? Get back Walker Kessler. Then let's say that, I don't know, the Nets might be willing to do it if they can get a first and get off of, Cam Johnson's 22 million or whatever it is, 20 million. I think it's like 21 and some change, right? But say you get off of that, right? Boom, you could do that. And then maybe throw in a Rui or something, and now you get Kessler, you get him, and now you freed up your full mid-level exception. So again, to me, Utah is the key to give you the flexibility to really revamp this roster. It's just, what will it take for Utah to play ball, right? Is Utah willing to kind of step up and do? Because right now is their best chance to kind of use their cap space, because they're going to have to pay Lauri Markkanen unless they trade him, right? So right now is a good opportunity for Utah and for Danny Ainge to kind of just be like, hey, we'll take things. And as long as it's not some like crazy long-term, because you don't want to end up locking up cap space and hurting you long-term. But D'Lo's an expiring contract. Cam Reddish and Christian Wood are both expiring. So it's not long-term money that they're taking on. It's money that's just through this year. They wipe their hands of the money off the books. Maybe they could flip D'Lo to the Nets for something, right? Or, even if they're flipping D'Lo for a couple seconds, if you get a first from the Lakers and you flip D'Lo for a couple seconds from the Nets, it's a win-win. That's why I was saying maybe you could work out some type of 3-team deal where it's Portland, the Jazz, and the Lakers, and they're kind of helping facilitate the Jeremy Grant trade. Right, so we get Walker Kessler, we get Jeremy Grant. Maybe they're more willing and inclined to even facilitate the Jeremy Grant trade if we take on Colin Sexton, which I wouldn't mind at that point if you could get all three and still have the flexibility to bring in Gary Trent Jr. and bring in a piece like Spencer Dinwiddie again. Especially if you're moving off of D'Lo, you kind of would be in the market for a point guard. Well, Spencer Dinwiddie could be that guy that could come in. So you could use essentially Utah's cap space to kind of absorb the hefty salaries that you need. And then, whatever pieces that the Blazers don't want, you kind of use Utah to kind of take on some of those things and allocate the picks accordingly. So again, there's options and flexibility there. And then again, you could do it with the Jazz and the Brooklyn Nets. Maybe I'll do like a more in-depth video on the Nets and the Jazz. Let me know down in the comments if you want that. If you want me to kind of break down the Nets, Jazz, and Lakers possibilities. Again, these are just spitballing here. There's not. We know what the Walker Kessler price is, and I think it's very fair. It's very reasonable, right? He's 22, going to be 23-year-old center that fits perfectly. Like, he is worth a first-round pick just with what he has shown in the NBA and as a guy that can already play now in the NBA. Lakers make a lot of sense to go get Walker Kessler because he's a piece that not only helps now, but now is your center of the future. Now you got your center of the future locked up. So he could back up Anthony Davis, and, while you have LeBron, once LeBron rides off into the sunset, boom, shift AD to the 4, bring Kessler in at the 5, and now you got your 4-5 going forward, plus whatever other pieces you have post LeBron James. maybe you're still able to contend. Maybe you're still be able to be in a position. And if Walker Kessler can become a legit, 2010 guy, right? Like now you're in good spot, which, right now or last year, for example, in 23 minutes a game, he gave you basically 9 points and 8 rebounds. So if you give him the per, 30, 35 minutes as a starter, he's getting you at least 10 rebounds, and he's probably getting you anywhere 15 to 20 points a game, depending on how big of a focal point he is offensively. So you get that of the future. You still go get Jeremy Grant for now, or, even if you can't do the Jeremy Grant thing, you hit up the Nets, or you clear up cap space with the Jazz. So you have several options here that really give you some flexibility to really kind of round out and reshape this roster to get you back into contention. Because Walker Kessler would solve the center position. Cam Johnson or Jeremy Grant solve your wing position. You bring in a 3-and-D shooter and Gary Trent Jr., who is heavily linked to the Lakers right now. And then Spencer Dinwiddie, you get your replacement at the point guard position with more athleticism, better point of attack, and better size, right? And I think that would be a huge upgrade. And then if you want, you can even bring in a Colin Sexton, who I think he'd be solid as a scorer, that scoring punch off the bench. I don't really know how I feel about starting Colin Sexton, but to me, it's you could use Utah as hey, we'll scratch your back, you scratch our back. Maybe we give you some of these expirings, and we'll even take on Colin Sexton to kind of offset things, but we want you to help facilitate the Jeremy Grant trade, right? And he's like, okay, fine. And then now you get Sexton, Kessler, and you get Jeremy Grant, and then now you're able to bring in Gary Trent Jr., you're able to bring in, a Spencer Dinwiddie. Now you just basically turned, a couple into the bench guys, a couple key pieces. Don't get me wrong, like Rui, Vando, probably doing D'Angelo Russell. Can you convince them to take Gabe Vincent? But you're able to get all the pieces that you need. And for those that are how does the money work out? Again, I just explained on both sides how the money would match. And you'd still have guys, like I said, Gabe Vincent still. So you could do, again, several ways. It's just kind of finding the pieces and finding that common middle ground. Can you find that middle ground when it comes to that potential trade? Again, maybe it's a 3-team trade, which 3-team trades get tough, right? It's the old saying, 3-team trades are where trades go to die, right? And it's because it is so difficult. So to me, I'd be kind of looking at, can you do each trade individually? Can you use Utah as the springboard to get what you need from them to then pivot and go make the trade for Jeremy Grant, right? And how does that work out? How does that shape up? And at that point, maybe you're not, because you wouldn't be able to give up a first for Kessler and 2 firsts for a Jeremy Grant, but maybe they'll take, a first and a pick swap, and you can get it done that way. And then now you give up a first for Walker Kessler, but that first is valuable because you got the piece for now in the future. And then you get a guy in Jeremy Grant who can help now and even post LeBron James. And then you're also freeing up what you need to bring in Spence, to bring in Gary Trent Jr., and in my opinion, we're off to the races at that point. So I like the idea. As always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think, yes, Utah is kind of the key to kind of orchestrate and get everything else done that you need to get done? Do you feel no, Utah... See, I get a lot of comments at times every time I mention Utah that are like, Danny Ainge would never trade with the... And it's well, he just did. He was the savior in the Russell Westbrook thing when everyone told us it was impossible. And he ended up getting us the pieces we need to get into the conference finals. Danny Ainge just wants to stockpile assets. It's all he cares about, stockpiling assets. Can he stockpile enough assets to where he's happy, right? So if you can kind of give him what he wants, get back what you want, and then use that to pivot over here to get that, I think that the Lakers would be in really good shape, personally. But again, do you feel the same way? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, let me know down in the comments below. Also, again, if you want me to kind of break down the possibility of a Nets and Jazz, whether it's a 3-team deal, I basically could break it down like I did in this video, do a 3-team route and then do the individual trade route, and we can kind of talk about it and break it down. But let me know down in the comments if you want that. Let me know everything, what you think. You think it's possible, you think it's not. Again, might be a little bit of a pipe dream, but it's not unrealistic is the point, right? It is a very realistic potential there. It's not one of those things where it's like, there's no way we're trading for Giannis. Like, no, it's very real. It's very possible. It's just, will they be able to work it out? But anyway, again, let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.